Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Analytical Line. As always, thanks for joining me. I'm Josh Davis, and today I'm going to be talking about some Penn State recruits for basketball and football. Some really interesting stuff going around, and at the end, I'll give you a quick blue-white game update. So you're ready for the big event later this month. March Madness is pretty much over. It'll be Michigan and UConn facing off in the national title game tonight. I debated doing my show tomorrow, but it's like, I'll just stay on the same schedule. I'll talk about some other stuff. Maybe I'll talk about the national championship game next week if it's still trending. But yeah, I really want to talk about some of the Penn State basketball recruiting that's going on. Tons of transfer portal stuff that's happening right now. Coach Rhodes is making some moves. And the big one is that Ivan Juric announced yesterday that he is staying in Happy Valley. The star freshman center is staying home, and that's a big key. Juric was pushed into that starting spot this season because Yannick Koenig-Niederhauser left early to the NBA, and he had a fantastic year this year with the Clippers in LA. But having a center is so crucial in Mike Rhodes' system and what he wants to do, and it's clearly worked. He's developed some great centers so far in his short time at Happy Valley, and Ivan Juric is really looking to be the next one, and it's seeming like that's going to be the case. With how he performed this year, and with how things are going to go this offseason, he is one of the givens in this program that Ivan Juric is going to be special next season. And then rumor is that Caden Mingo is coming back, and we'll see if Dylan Mingo decides to kindle his interest with Penn State after UNC just fired their coach, and they actually just hired Coach Malone, the former coach from the Nuggets, which is a really good hire in my opinion. But we'll see how things go with Dylan Mingo and his recruitment again. But the key is I think Caden's going to be staying around in Happy Valley. Some other interesting things. We have not heard anything else from any of the other current players. Rumor is that Dom Stewart might be gone. Rumor is that Eli Rice might be gone. Mason Blackwood and Freddie Dilion have both entered the portal, which is really disappointing. Those are two young players that I was really excited about. And Dilion, of course, leading the team in points this season. That's going to be very missed. And he'll be going to his third stop after Tennessee and Penn State. But the big ones are, and also Melatunja entered the portal. That was another tough one. In terms of the guards, like that's a few guards that are just gone, But you're bringing in a couple of guys, and mainly you're bringing in Jamison White, who's the one freshman in the 2026 class that we're bringing in. He's a St. Louis kid, 6'7". He's a forward. He's going to be really good, but again, he's young. I don't know how much playing time he'll get in this freshman season, but he will be in that mix for sure. He's a really talented player. Then the big one is we're bringing in Roko Perkashin. The pronunciation is going to get interesting with these. He's from France. He's 23 years old, and he is going to bring tons of experience. He's somebody who was an NBA prospect years ago, back when he was coming out of high school, and he's decided to play pro ball in Europe instead of playing college, instead of going to the NBA, instead of going to the G League. He's somebody who has really blossomed into a fantastic player overseas and could 100% come into college ball now and elevate his draft stock. That's his goal here, to come into Penn State, be a leading scorer on a Big Ten team, hopefully push a Big Ten team into tournament contention like Penn State. And if Perkachin can do that, and maybe some other transfers that Coach Rhodes is going to have to bring in to fill out this roster, the goal is for Penn State to go from the youngest team in the Power 5 to an experienced team that can mesh well, that can play his brand of basketball, that has depth, that can press, and can most importantly shoot the rock. And you're bringing in Francois Wabout from Pac Orthez, France. Couple of French forwards with tons of size, tons of experience. Wabout is 21, I believe. And so you're bringing in a couple guys who are going to be some of the oldest players in the entire country, have pro ball experience from overseas, and are going to come in and immediately add that size and experience combination that this roster severely lacked this season. So I'm really excited about these moves right off the bat, and hopefully Coach Rhodes has a couple more up his sleeve, because there's going to be some more work to be done to fill out this roster. The other thing I want to talk about is some football stuff that's come up. And the big one is we've added a couple of 3 stars. Penn State added a nice 4-star wide receiver from Iowa. That's exciting. The key is that Matt Campbell has not added any top blue chip prospects. This is what I was worried about when we brought Coach Campbell in. When you bring in a staff full of Iowa State guys, a bunch of guys that have never even heard of a 5-star, like, you could go talk to Coach Campbell. He would be having a conversation with Coach Terry Smith, and it would be like, okay, Coach Campbell, I'm going to go on the recruiting visit to such and such. He's like, 5 stars? What are those? I didn't even know the stars went up that high. So, like, you bring guys from Iowa State, they don't even know what it's like to recruit 5 stars, to recruit blue chip prospects. That's an issue that I was worried about when we brought Coach Campbell in, and it's an issue that's becoming more prevalent day by day, because Penn State should be in the conversation for all these guys. Even just in state, you have Maxwell Hiller, Kamon Spell, and Jet Harrison, 3 guys that are in the top 10 overall of recruiting rankings in the next 2 classes. Guys that a few years ago under Coach Franklin, you can say what you want about Coach Franklin's on-field coaching. I would agree with you that Matt Campbell has better on-field coaching and probably better development than James Franklin. But James Franklin was elite at 2 things. It was hiring staff members and it was recruiting players. And under Coach Franklin, these 3 guys wouldn't have even thought about leaving the state. They wouldn't have even taken a visit anywhere else because they knew they were coming to Penn State. And that was the best place for them. You have these absolutely elite generational prospects coming out of high school football in Pennsylvania, and they're not even thinking about Penn State. They're not even thinking about Matt Campbell because he's not making in-state recruiting a priority, and he's not making blue chip recruiting a priority, and it's a big issue. And a lot of Penn State fans would say, I'm really happy that Penn State and Coach Campbell are looking deeper and not looking about the guys that are the most expensive NIL and the biggest guys on recruiting sites. We're going after the guys that fit the program, fit the mold of what you want a player to be on and off the field at Penn State, guys that you can develop into elite NFL players. I'm fine with that until you go play Ohio State and they got a dozen 5 stars on both sides of the field, and they literally can't start all of them because they're overwhelmed with the number of 5 stars they got. I'm all for Matt Campbell going and getting the guys he wants and developing them and getting guys that fit his culture until you got to go beat Ohio State. And I think the expectation is that Penn State is right up there with Ohio State in the next year or 2, because otherwise, why the heck did you hire Matt Campbell? You would have gone and hired somebody else. And so that's what's a little frustrating so far with the recruiting is there's absolutely no signs for Penn State to go and get all these elite prospects. I mean, you got guys in the DMV area from Jersey and Maryland and Virginia that are 5 stars in the 2027 class, and Penn State doesn't seem to be in the running for any of them. I'm looking at Raylon Henry, who's committed to Texas A&M. How does a kid from Maryland commit to Texas A&M over Penn State? That's because he wasn't made a priority. You got Chris Whitehead, one of the top edge rushers in the entire country, coming out of Chesterfield, Virginia. That's somebody that Penn State should be all over. And he's nowhere to be found. He's not coming on campus. We're hosting 3 stars instead from the middle of Iowa. Nobody knows their name. They might know their name if they develop. But we need some guys at Penn State. And I think it's an issue from the back end internally with how NIL resources are being allocated. This was a thing that blew up over on social media over the weekend, where there was a big Happy Valley United event, and then people went to the event and were given expensive Penn State gear, and then were reselling it on eBay after the event. And it's like, That's what your money is going to right now. If you're a donor and you're supporting Happy Valley United, it's a big middle finger to your face when then people are taking your NIL money, spending on frivolous things that are not getting players and not getting recruits, not directly associated with helping out the university, and kind of just throwing it away. And the way that Penn State football is wasting money right now it's a big issue. I was really hoping that when all this was overhauled and we got a new staff and when Derek Hoodger came in to be a new GM, that a lot of that would kind of fix itself and a lot of that would slim down and go away. That hasn't been the case so far. The guts need to be stripped out from that. Penn State was one of the first, I think they were the first, to implement an NIL collective, and it's been very poor in terms of the execution of that. And it seems like a lot of corruption has kind of festered itself into that. And the money isn't going to the right places. So then when you look at the recruiting rankings and you say, why is Penn State 30th in recruiting rankings this year? Why were they 80th last year? And it's like, at some point you can blame it on, okay, these guys got to get used to things. The new guys got to spend time and build relationships with players. I completely get that. But there's also a timeline for things. You need a quarterback. You need Will Menkel. You got to go get somebody in the next couple weeks that can transform the quarterback room. I love getting some guys like Peter Borky, but Borky's not a starting quarterback at Penn State. He's not that caliber guy. And if that is where the coaches' heads are at, that's a big issue. You need to go make a splash. And you need to go get a top quarterback recruit, because otherwise in a couple years, you're going to be looking around the room and you're like, what were we doing a couple of years ago? Now we got to go get a transfer. And I already don't love the fact that Penn State's entire quarterback room is Rocco Becht, Connor Berry, and then you got guys like Peyton Falzone way down the chart. And of course, you got Alex Mansky in there, who I do like. The issue, though, is that you don't have any of these guys that have experience for years with a team, with a coordinator. You're not building anything. You're not giving them experience. This is why I thought Ethan Grunkmeyer was the number one priority to keep around in Happy Valley, and the staff failed at that. Now he's at Virginia Tech. I hope all the best for Ethan Grunkmeyer, but it's really bad for Penn State because you're hitting the full reset button there. College football doesn't have a waiting period. It's not like the NFL where you can tank for better picks. If you're bad, it really can sustain bad. What I'm trying to say is you have one bad year and all of a sudden recruits don't want to go to your school anymore, and that turns into a bad streak of years, and now all of a sudden your program isn't on the same level as the top 3 programs in the Big Ten. If Penn State's not careful, I would even go as far as saying if Michigan's not careful, because they're in a very similar boat. They just got a new coach, a lot of resets in the program, a lot of new transfers. They're trying to get away from the Sherrone Moore and John Harbaugh scandals. Penn State and Michigan are in similar boats with the full resets that they just did this offseason. Those were 2 teams, along with Ohio State, that were in the Big 3 of the Big Ten. Consistently up there running for Big Ten championships, consistently competing for national championships. Those 2 teams are being on the verge of being replaced by the likes of Indiana and Oregon and teams like that are managing NIL much better, much more efficiently, and teams that are just simply winning football games. Teams that they've found the way to win in the modern era of college football with transfers, but also building up high school recruiting and finding talent efficiently, something that Penn State and Michigan have really failed to do, and they've failed to evolve along with the rest of modern college football. And hopefully this full reset is the perfect opportunity for Penn State to do so, and we'll see if they do it. And the big thing is the blue-white game. It's the first major opportunity to showcase this new reset to fans. And not to stay negative here, but I think they're failing with that too. I mentioned years and years past on this show that I think the spring game is a huge opportunity to have a big event for fans. And instead of lessening the spring game, I think that Penn State should go all out and make the spring game a much bigger deal and try and pack out the stadium and give fans something to do to come back to campus when the weather gets warm in April. Everyone wants to go back to Beaver Stadium and come back to the campus and enjoy that. Make it a big event. I've advised in the past that Penn State go find a FCS team or a G5 team and just literally do an exhibition game at the end of the spring season. There's really no need to do a full extra practice. Coaches can say, oh, it's such a valuable practice. It's one extra practice. It's not completely life-changing. That one practice isn't doing anything for your team. I would argue that doing a complete exhibition game where it actually means something and getting game-level reps against an FCS team or a D2 team or group of 5 team or whoever you decide you want to play, that would be far more valuable than just running another practice. But Penn State under Matt Campbell is lessening the blue-white game instead. So it really is going to be a glorified practice. Everyone's going to pack into Beaver Stadium. I guess maybe it won't be that packed due to the construction and the lessening of the event and all that. But the key is a bunch of fans will be there in Beaver Stadium just watching the players screw around on the field, doing their reps, doing their drills. Maybe there'll be some sort of scrimmage, but it's not going to be a traditional blue-white game where it's offense versus defense and A team versus B team and you're putting up points and you wonder who's going to win and you get to see teams make plays and cheer and all that. It's not going to be that. So unfortunately, that's how it's going to be. We'll see. That could evolve over the coming years, but at least this year in Matt Campbell's first season, and he's had only a couple months to prepare, it's going to be a glorified practice in the blue-white game. But that'll be all. Just a quick 20-minute episode. Thanks for tuning in. Tons of cool Penn State stuff going on. I will, of course, be keeping you all updated, and as we get closer to the blue-white game, I'll start doing major previews. I'm so excited. There's some really big position battles that are going to be happening leading up in the next couple of weeks. We're basically halfway through spring practice right now, so a lot of cool stuff going on there. But as always, go Nittany Lions.